Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live webinar. As usual, I'm your host, Dr. 𝐄𝐯𝐶 𝐶, and I have a very special guest today. And you know that we are planning for this live webinar for ages now, and we will discuss in depth with our guest. So today we are talking about writing your screenplay with a global writers groups, 100 pages in 10 weeks. As you know that I'm working with, I was a student of Carl Schoenfeld's, and we are working together now to in different space. So I am more into marketing and all other things, and Carl is doing his work with the screenplay and his online screenplay groups that he's now working with. And he has created a huge contribution to the writer community. And we're going to be discussing all that with you today. So I will just invite Carl to the stage. Carl,
hello.
How are you today?
Very well, very well. Good to see you. You see me back here in my old surroundings. The last time we were at the sort of glamorous film festival. Now it's back to gray skies, and back to the usual work.
Yes. One thing that I wanted to mention you that after our lives on the Cannes Film Festival, I got few more compliments from my network, and that was very good. And the YouTube channel, it was gained lots of views over there. So thank you very much for that contribution. And today we specifically wanted to discuss a special topic, and you know that our viewers, they're waiting eagerly to learn about 100 pages in 10 weeks. So before I jump into that conversation, I just wanted to request you to, if you could give a little bit of your introduction to the audience. Those audience, they don't know you or they are new here, they will get a understanding of your strength.
All right. Yeah, my background is really in producing. We started a production company when leaving film school together with my fellow students. We were quite lucky that within a year we were BAFTA nominated for our first documentary, and then we made feature films. And that stage we were very much part of the digital revolution. So when our work was shown around a lot of film festivals, which is usually where people go to update their skills, I was doing masterclasses, Q&As, workshops, and so on about how to make a big film with a very small camera, real feature film with a small digital camera. And that got me into teaching, and eventually to teach screenwriting at the University of Oxford. Because my course is often oversubscribed, I also got onto the internet because I got quite a few people coming back, including into the 100 pages in 10 weeks workshop. There's usually 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 people who've taken that workshop before, or initially Oxford classes, because they've got a new idea, or they want to do another draft. They understand now what was wrong with the earlier one. So that's how the Online Screenwriting Academy was born. We've been running these workshops, initially in a pub before the pandemic, but then on Zoom for more than 5 years now, and have been supporting hundreds of writers, also individually. So I also work with writers individually in terms of coaching or idea to production, comprehensive script development. And that brings me here.
That's a great introduction, Carl. And as I always give this example to the viewers, that I was your students and I have implemented a lot of things that I learned from you back 20 years back. Still, you are ongoing. You are supporting students at Oxford University and with your online screenwriting academy. You know why it is important for people to understand they're writing well before they jump into writing for a screenplay and all other things.
It's quite a complex negotiation process. There may be particular story that you want to share. There may be a feeling. There may be, and it may be an exploration that you're curious about something which you want to explore with a story. I mean, there's a multitude of ways how people come to screenwriting, and that's why there is no one way, and that's why there's such a variety of different stories. So it's, you know, I very much cherish that multitude of approaches, but that then of course needs to be negotiated with the way the industry, the film and television industry, develop and make films. And that's, you know, that's really at the heart of it. How do you negotiate your own storytelling, let's say, intentions and ambitions with the industry structure out there? And that's what we help with. Of course, you could do this also alone by reading the trades, going to film festivals, talking to people. But my experience is that in the groups and in the work that I do with people, they understand the expectations a lot quicker, and also understand that can be sometimes more tricky, how they can align their own ambitions with these expectations. And that's then the work that goes forward.
That's a great explanation. You know that today we're going to be discussing different points on specifically 100 pages in 10 weeks. Before you started this 100 page in 10 weeks work with us program, can you give us a bit of understanding why 100 pages in 10 weeks, why it is needed, and how important it is for the learners to understand it, and why you have built this program for people?
Well, you know, as the title suggests, on the surface, it's quite simple. That, you know, you start with outlining your story, and then you start writing, and then we read different work in turn, with distributed roles where you sort of experience your work. So the simplicity is yes, 10 weeks times 10 pages makes a script, and that's sort of where the additional complexity comes in. That means not just that the participation in the workshop gets you to work 2 hours every week. No, it's really about you thinking about during the entire week, when you're waiting for the bus, when you are doing your shopping, when, you know, whenever you've got the sort of your thoughts are exploring, you think about, oh, I've got on Wednesday, I've got to present my 10 weeks, sort of how do I make sure that goes very well? Sort of all that spare capacity, that spare brain capacity is then focused on your screenwriting project. So it has quite an effect for you to be aware. Yes, next week there are 10 people, usually 10 or 11 we are, who look out for what I've done. And if I haven't done anything, you know, we wonder why. So that focuses your attention, and that already produces results. And then when your work gets read in the workshop, I think it is already a sort of first stage of experiencing your work. I find that people get a lot more insight listening to their work read out, because they hear themselves rather than me evaluating and explaining. They hear themselves when a scene runs a bit flat, or when a character voice is inconsistent, but also when everybody giggles, they know that they got the humor right, or when yesterday we were reading a really tense chase scene, and you could see in the voices, you could see the atmosphere even in the Zoom room, that there is tension, and people wanted to know what's next. And that's really the business we are in, that we get an audience immersed in the story, wondering what happens next. So, and that's something that you experience in the workshop. So, and then you make notes from the discussions. I let's say I often do the more technical and sort of, let's say, industry related comments, particularly in the beginning. But as the workshops progress, also other people learn more to look at, let's say, technical achievements or shortcomings and point those out. So that also makes all the participants a bit more literate and articulate about script and story development issues.
Thank you, Carl. And we are just getting questions from the audience. So we have Tariq Wahar, if I spell your name correct. Thank you very much. Happy to be here, 𝐿𝐸𝐲. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask me. I'm just going to show to the audience, if you're okay with that. And I have the next audience. I do not have their names, but written, I'm writing my own life story. I'm highly dyslexic, but it's not an obstacle. It is a privilege, as it comes with more ambitions behind it. What tips can you give me to set it out properly?
I think you've already done the heavy lifting. It's about you understanding, how the dyslexia sort of creates and sort of charges your ambition to have that confidence. I think the rest of it should be sort of fairly simple, because you find there are lots of screenwriters who are dyslexic. Actually, if you are a writer and you are dyslexic, probably screenwriting might be your favorite form, because we are not in the business of enthralling the reader through beautiful language constructions and so on. That's what novelists do. They need to find absolutely the right words, and that way they influence what's going on in my brain, inspiring things and so on. If you, because when you write a script, it's a technical document, really. It's has clear conventions that are really designed for its professional readers, producers, development executives, directors, cinematographers, actors, and so on, who then bring their own professional creativity to it. So it's a sort of quite a well-defined communication process. And so the aim when you're writing a script is not that enthralling through language. It's really about creating dramatic situations. It's about creating emotions. That is really, so it's more important, as your post, your comment suggests. It's more that that you feel these emotions and know how to work these, how to put different emotive situations into a sequence in order to build a story. So Google dyslexic screenwriters. I'm sure you find quite a few, I suppose then it's really, work with those images, and then every writer, certainly every of some standing, then has readers who help them. I mean, no screenwriter with any achievements tells the truth when they write first draft on the title page of a script and sends it out. That is usually a blatant lie. Usually there are earlier 0.3, 0.4 drafts that they send out to their support readers, friendly readers, friends, family, industry people, and so on, in order to sort of fix stuff. And you might just have a reader who helps you with those particular issues of finding, improving the word choices and improving the spelling and improving the grammar. But that's sort of technical stuff. There are loads of people who can help you with that. It's really the emotions and creating situations, dramatic situations that make us wonder what happens next, that give insights and so on, to conjure those up. That's really the business of screenwriting. And then the words are just there to help all these professional readers to trigger their creativity as well. For the actor to think, how would I deliver these lines? For the cinematographer to think, how would I frame this? How would I light this? Is it going to be dark and bright? Sort of, that's really where the filmmaking happens, not so much in the spelling and in the grammar.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, our online user. Although I don't have your name, but that was a great question. I'm dyslexic myself. As Carl said, that dyslexia make you extraordinary. So you are extraordinary already. So then utilizing your knowledge to write a screenplay is a different levels. And we have lots of tips and tricks on the online screenwriting academy.com websites. So if you browse there and if you wanted to book a one-to-one session with Carl, he will be more than happy to guide you through, because we are here to support our community. Either way, you can get supported. Don't worry about anything. If it's started, you started, or if you're in a mid-levels, or if you're in a mature level, you always need a second spectacles to look your screenplay, talk about, and then go from there. So thank you very much for your questions. My next question, what your thoughts on the film straw? And as I'm dyslexic, I cannot pronounce this word. I think Carl, you can.
Incentive to be here.
Incentive to be here. I am using ChatGPT to get started on it. Thank you for your engagement. Means a lot from both of you.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the film Straw. I haven't seen it, so it's always, I'm a BAFTA awards voter, so I see a lot of the things that are sort of on that kind of radar. I go to film festivals like Cannes and so on. But I'm not able to catch absolutely everything. So that's why, let's say, on the more prominent films, as well as some of my weird choices at festivals, I can comment, but not in absolutely everything. Yet I think ChatGPT can be very helpful. I mean, there's a long answer on the website. There's an article I wrote about working with generative AI. But just briefly, let's say there is a danger when you work with generative AI that you create something that's very middle of the road, that's very much like what other people have done. And I refer to the earlier question from the dyslexic person. And what I think what producers and production company want to see from new writers needs to have a new element. For the middle of the road stuff, they have dozens of writers with whom they've worked, sometimes for decades, and that's just human nature. They would probably go to those people first in order to get more middle of the road stuff. So what you have to think about is, how do you make sure there is a real original voice? You're exploring something new, a new story world in that story, which would make a producer say, yeah, I don't get that from my usual writers, so they want to have a meeting with you. So I see the advantage of ChatGPT much more sort of as, let's say, an educational tool to understand where that middle of the road is, what the industry requires. So when we at the moment, and lots of broadcasters and film funding organizations agree that it is a problem that most screenwriters who live off their screenwriting, certainly in the UK, look like me. They look white, gray, 50s, 60s, and so on, and that we need a wider range of voices. If we want to have exciting film and television, we need a wider range of voices. The problem, of course, is that a lot of people from this wide range don't have access to that kind of education. What some sociologists have called cultural capital, that you get when you grow up in a house where last night's movie is being discussed at the breakfast table, and you know all the right words, and you know all the right construction principles. So I think you can already see that generative AI can be used by some people. They've figured that out to make up for the lacking cultural capital, and use ChatGPT in order to tell an original story in a way that it fits into film and television industry expectations. That's how I can maybe compact a huge discussion at the moment that's going to turn the industry upside down, into a format that can be digested as part of such a Q&A session.
I totally agree with you, Carl, because when AI is there, you write things, but AI doesn't have souls the way you say it. Like, you can use AI. As I'm dyslexic, I have short memories. So I usually, if I cannot write a sentence properly, construct a sentence properly, I get support from AI. But the originality is your brain, isn't it? Originality, what you think about from your heart, and then you laid your masterpiece. So we have many other questions from the audience, but before I jump into the questions, I just wanted to ask our original questions that we discussed about 100 pages in 10 weeks. So if you are definitely wanted to join Carl with 100 pages in 10 weeks, please feel free to go to our website on onlinescreenwritingacademy.com, and you will find all the work with us options and how you can join Carl and the different type of offerings over there. My next question to you, you are thinking, we are thinking, okay, 100 pages in 10 weeks. This is a challenge, isn't it? Why this challenge is needed for the writers community to engage with?
It's really, we went earlier into, let's say, the impact that it has on your brain to be part of a group, and there is an expectation. And how that frees up parts of your attention and your brain to focus on your screenwriting. Plus, also, it is the experience of hearing your own work. It's not like, by all means, not the same as seeing it filmed and seeing a film on the basis of it, but it goes a little bit in that direction, that it sort of creates a little sort of prototype of what your story might sound like when there's different voices telling it. And through that, people get out loads of first their own insight rather than somebody telling them, but also you get feedback from a whole range of perspectives. One thing that you need to, of course, bear in mind that we're moving increasingly from, let's say, the sort of 20th century national broadcasters in different countries towards a streaming service model, and those streaming services all looking for stories that work globally. So, the question is sort of how can you sort of, being wherever, if you're in India, in Afghanistan, or around the corner in a UK village, how can you sort of become aware how your story could be an experience for people from such a range of cultural backgrounds? Again, that's something that we start because there's usually quite a range of people, a range of voices in these groups, and that then helps to, let's say, discuss your story and your script, the recent scenes from different perspectives, and that helps you then to, what the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore called the touch of the universals. Have something that is authentic from your own experience, but that's also an experience that can be shared with the right range of people who come to it from very different walks of life. And that's something you see sort of we have quite often, that there's sort of some apparent contradiction. We ask for something that's authentic locally, but we also want something that can be experienced from a wide range of people. And so we find that there's sort of a lot of these contradictions. They look very intimidating in theory, but when we do the work, we see these dissolving. We find individual little solutions to problems. And quite often when we have these discussions, we refer to other films. We say, hey, you've got a problem here, sort of bit of a clash. Let's look at how they've resolved it at this other films, and so on. So that's why we often talk about movie titles or television titles, in order to understand how can a particular problem be met.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talking to Carl today and to talk about 100 pages. 10 weeks, we're going to be having more questions from the audience. I think the next question is from Tarek Wahar. So I have written, I'm just going to share this question on the screen. So Tarek, thank you very much for your questions. So I have written half a page synopsis for a story based on a true story based in Afghanistan and Pakistan. I am denoted by the scope. Where do I start?
Yeah, I think sort of, your advantage is that Afghanistan and Pakistan are troubled places at the moment. That's, of course, bad for the people who are sort of having to deal with these troubles. But as storytellers, we like problems and troubles and conflicts and so on, and that this is already in people's awareness that these are difficult places. So that's why, you can use that to raise an audience interest. Half a page, of course, is sort of very cursory. That's why. And what I think all writers, and that probably affects a lot of the questions that we have here, what good writers do that are successful, they're right and they're right again. So if you've got half a page, then that's good. But let's say the people who succeed in this business, they write a lot. If you've got half a page that you think is interesting, then you just sit down and write it, and then if that doesn't work, you try a different way, and if that doesn't work, maybe you feed it into ChatGPT and ask for feedback. That was something that I wouldn't have recommended 18 months ago, but over the past year, let's say, the feedback that you get on a story, but that's sort of for, again, neither me or ChatGPT will be able to say anything meaningful on the basis of a half a page, because there's just not enough there. There isn't enough intellectual property. There isn't enough material there to say this is your story. So I would say you need to at least sort of expand it to 8, 9, 10 pages, a short story, to understand that is really Tariq's experience of the Troubles, or your perspective on what happens in this country, so that it's unique to you. So only through that detail, that's how you also acquire copyright. Nobody gets any copyright for any idea. If you say, oh, I've got a great idea, it's about a boy who falls in love with a girl, not copyrightable. Ideas are not copyrightable. It would be a terrible world if everybody would have to go, everybody who wants to go to a story, or a girl falling in love with a boy, would have to go through you and get your permission, to write that kind of love story. So the intellectual property is only in the detail. So you get more protection for a treatment than a little outline, and you get even more protection for a full screenplay than a treatment. And all you need to do is just to write. And that's what I mentioned earlier. Build, let's say, a community of friendly readers as you get. I mean, that's what happens a lot in 100 pages in 10 weeks, that people find some other people, not everyone, but some other people who will give them early feedback, what I mentioned earlier, and you to talk to other people, get their feedback, and then write a better draft until you can send this out to directors and producers and find a community to get it made.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Tariq. And you also thank Carl. Get it busy, because without writing or dumping all of your ideas to the papers, you even can't start. So it's the best way to engage with Carl. And we also wanted to request you today. We have a YouTube channels where I will ask my team to paste the YouTube channel link here, and as well as we have a Instagram page and as well as Facebook page. So if you wanted to go to our websites, you also can get those links here. We just need your support and spread the word of Screenplay. Those people you think that they can get benefited. We have lots of tips and tricks on our website. So thank you, everyone. And I just wanted to jump into my next questions. That is from, just give me a second, Roby. So the question is, from where can I start my journey to find the answer of if I was able to do this job of screenwriting? What is the required touch or secret we need to have?
I don't think there's any sort of secrets really. I would very much distance myself from the kind of coaches or script gurus who say I've got the secret sauce. There is no secret sauce. I think that's just ways of getting you to split with your money. I think it's really what I mentioned earlier. What you need to do is write a lot. That's certainly, it's like in most disciplines, it's really that elbow grease, that tenacity that I see brings people to the top. I think you need a real passion for film and television storytelling. When I have people in the workshops who don't watch very much, then there is actually quite little I can do how to help them. Because if I then mention, oh, you should look at this film, or look how they should have done it at that film, and if they sort of haven't seen any of the classics, if they haven't seen anything of the kind of films that have been discussed recently, it becomes very difficult for them to catch up. On the other hand, it also works with what I see professionals do is they don't just watch a lot of stuff, but also reflect on it. we have all these discussions in film festivals and conferences and so on about what's good, why is it good, why is this, what does a particular film, Parasite, Anora, whatever, what does it mean for the industry, where audience tastes are going, where business models are going, and so on. So we have these discussions all the time. So and that's really, I understand when you come here and you're starting out, you don't have access to that, but I've worked with lots of people who then have. Who start first with maybe regional film festivals or online events or connecting with people on social media and striking up, loving their stuff, commenting on their stuff, striking up a conversation, and so on. Everybody can do that, but I think the main ingredient is tenacity, and yeah, you need to have an original voice, but you only understand that originality and can communicate that originality if you've got an idea what everyone else does.
Thank you,
in
Carl.
that sector. So that's not in all film and television across 130-year history, but if you're doing horror, if you're doing television soaps, if you're doing musicals, you need to know that sector.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for posting your questions. As we said, it's an hour conversation. We're going to be talking more about the screenplay and how you can get most out of this program. This is not end, as we said, this is a continued conversation. So we can contact Carl directly from LinkedIn and any other social media, and as well as like and follow and subscribe to our YouTube channels. So my next question is from a LinkedIn user. My book is called The Ever Raping Pitch.
Riping, I suppose.
Ever Riping Pitch, sorry. Tough and what life's thrown my way, but soft as a peach as a person. My mission is global change. Thank you. I will follow you both. It's a great film initiative. I will look at your article on it. Mine is outside the box completely.
Yes, I think I like titles that are slightly mysterious. So usually a peach gets ripe, and then there's a good time to eat it because initially it's hard, and doesn't really taste like very much, and but then it's really beautiful when it's ripe, and then it goes beyond ripe, and you don't want to eat it anymore, and it smells funny. So sort of, if there's something that is ever ripening, it's kind of, it's a strange concept, and I would like to know sort of, how could that happen? So I like these kind of intriguing titles.
Thank you. So we just wanted to jump into our original conversation, and we're going to be answering some more questions. Thank you, everyone, for giving and joining this live webinar. It's really fascinating to talk to Carl and as well as answering your questions. So, these online writing groups, we understand that it has a mechanism that can keep the writers busy, one thing. What other key takeaways our audience can take from these online writing groups that you are offering with 100 pages in 10 weeks?
Yeah, I think it's also important. You need to be ready for that kind of interaction, for that kind of conversation. So sort of, that's why with people who joining this, I usually have a conversation sort of where they're at in their storytelling, and because I find that we need, in order for people to find it worth their time, we need to have quite intense and focused discussions about the work we've just been listening to, and I don't have so much time in the workshops to explain, let's say, the key elements of characterization, of structure, of genre, for example, how to work with genres and what are the differences and how do you recognize a genre and what is good work that people do in that genre and who have been defining that genre and all that kind of stuff. So, and I'm aware that, let's say, those key principles, there aren't very many of them, but how to implement them is really the struggle. So, but I don't have time to sort of explain them. So it's also about you thinking about how can you get ready for such a group, by watching lots of stuff and reflecting why you think it's good and it isn't. It's not about whether you like the same stuff as I do. It's more about what case you make, whether something that you've seen has a real achievement for you. That's sort of what I'm looking for. And maybe also read some of the books that are available about story structure, or even blog posts. I mean, Dan Harmon mainly does blog posts about this story cycle. The other key books are sort of, Robert McKee's book on story. Chris Fogler, I think, is the first one you should always read, Writer's Journey, and so on. Just to, not because I believe that following, let's say, the principles of these books will be guaranteeing success. I think it works much more that you understand the concepts, the mechanisms better, and then really what you learn from is not these books, but then you look at how their principles have been applied in the kind of comedies that make you laugh, or in the kind of dramas that make you cry, or the horrors that make you recoil, how these concepts have been applied. And that's really what then happens a lot, in those discussions that we'll look at your achievements, and then maybe look at how you can improve on that if necessary.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you everyone for your questions. I have next questions from another LinkedIn user. I have written wellness journals over 5 years. I'm writing global changes for world wellness, and now started writing my life story book for global connection. Sorry, I need global connections that helpfully has a meaningful impact of unique survival and belief of people for the future for all. It's a huge mission. I might try a 100-page short story to begin with.
Yeah, and here the thing is, let's say, certainly in feature film, sort of when we sit down and watch television or go to the cinema, it's important to remember that people usually don't like to be lectured. You should do this and you have to do that. If you want to be successful, do what I say, and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't really work. Because those kind of stories are experiential. What you want to create is an experience by using fictional characters, running into fictional trouble and events and so on, that make your ideas experiential. I think some of the best work, everything by Christopher Nolan, for example, Stanley Kubrick, and so on, is about ideas. But you don't feel lectured because these storytellers are able to illustrate is the wrong word, more like sort of bring these ideas to life by creating a story that allows us to experience these ideas. And so that's why I would recommend look at films like Memento or Interstellar or 2001 or Clockwork Orange or sort of all these films. And by all means, sort of Google yourself a short list, films about ideas. Look at how these films bring ideas to life. And I think then you will be in a much better position to write something, because you understand the challenge of bringing an idea to life.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you, everyone. We have some more questions, but I just wanted to dive into deeper to share an experience or a story, success story from your end, because we know we have lots of success stories on the Online Screenwriting Academy's websites, but can you share a specific success stories? Because, on the Cannes Film Festival, we interviewed Alex Dikofa, and it was fascinating the way he talked about a screenplay and your connections, and both of you went over there. We're going to be talking a little bit of that end of this live, but can you particularly share a success story with our audience and end-to-end process if they will join 100 Pays in 10 weeks? What is the typical end-to-end process and a success story based on your previous cohort?
Since for, let's say, a lot of people, I suppose sort of what I do, what happens a lot is that people go on to film festival labs. I mean, there are a lot of labs, Torino Film Labs, Berlinale Talents, Cinefondation at the Cannes Film Festival, Sundance Labs, BBC Writers Room in the UK. So they're also sort of national labs, and quite a few of the people I've worked with have gone on to these labs, which usually then are in a business. You've been selected, usually out of thousands of people who apply. That's already quite a distinction. And they then connect you to, let's say, the next layer of professionals, producers and directors who might work with you, on getting your film made. So that's certainly a sweet spot. We've had quite a few people making success with competitions. I've got one writer from India who worked a bit in local advertising rurally, and the rest was really her being a stay-at-home mum. And now she is optioned. She had several shorts produced. She's got an agent and is very active on LinkedIn and so on. And that was also through screenplay competition, winning or quarterfinalist and so on of a screenplay competition. Let's say, which also sort of shows how the industry changes in the 21st century, because let's say before COVID, there was maybe a maximum of 3 competitions that were worth your time. That's a Blacklist, the Nickel Fellowship, and maybe Rockcliffe, but everything else would be regarded as a waste of time. But then through COVID, quite a few writers managed to make professional connections through screenwriting competitions, and that sort of changed this. But as always, I would just look very carefully at what each competition does. I'd say there's always changes. I mean, that's why I wouldn't necessarily suggest any particular ones. I mean, certainly one I have recommended only recently. Just one of my writers said they got script feedback which was hair-raisingly bad. So it's always good to see sort of what writers are saying about them. Is there emphasis, and are the judges sort of right for you, or should you better go to a different screenwriting competition, let's say, that's sort of closer to your ambition with a particular project? So always do your due diligence around this. And certainly, I mean, just because we had a sort of conversation about that yesterday, and certainly if because a lot of the screenwriting competitions provide feedback, or some of them, if you've paid for feedback, and certainly for Rockcliffe, I've heard it's very helpful. Let's say these other ones we heard from yesterday, then get back to them and say, look, I've paid for feedback, and I don't understand this, and this sentence doesn't mean anything. By all means, get back to them and complain.
Thank you, Ko. We are nearly end of our sessions. So we understood that it is necessarily needed for anyone they wanted to build their career on screenwriting, that you start writing, you collaborate with people, because one eyes is single, you have two eyes, but when you have 10, 20 eyes at the same time, it can give you enormous lift, I would say, to the next level. So that's why workshops, they call running from 100 page in 10 weeks is crucial, and you can learn more from other people, and as well as grow your idea. Because Carl, you mentioned in the earlier stage that it's divergent, different type of people, different type of culture, and different type of a story. So within this divergent, you can spot lots of opportunities and lots of different things to make your story to the next levels. Your story might be excellent, or it might be worst, but you need to start in a way that you can make it to the next levels. You might not do a screenplay in the future, but you might write a book, you might do something else, but the knowledge you will gain working with a team, with the groups, that always can be later utilized as transferable skills. And we talk about more about transferable skills in many times, that the thing you learn will get you there in the future. Doesn't matter you are a screenwriter, you are copywriting for online, and a lot of other things. So get started today if you wanted to. And there is a link here on our next program as well. If you wanted to join the next program, we are doing another live on the 2nd of July and talking about idea to production consultancy. There's another live that all of you would join and support us, and as well as continue this conversation to your colleagues and everyone. So Carl, next one is all about screenplay, screenwriting, groups, and we talk about contribution and collaboration. Can you give us an example of future collaboration that has created when people work with you?
Sorry, that question
Like
wasn't.
when people engage with your 100 page in 10 weeks, are there any collaborative projects created from there in the for future works?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I've had just somebody made a short film that where there are several people from her group, helped out and worked on that, and they got some professional actors to act in it. I think it's I'm very proud to be sort of involved. I helped them. They were able to shoot it, but then they run into trouble with the person who was supposed to edit it, sort of running away, which sometimes happens when you do things for very little money. And I was able to find them somebody who could complete it, because I mean, the people involved, they have. Now conversations with filmmakers about getting their scripts made. But I mean, that's what everybody says about the film and television industry. There's a lot of waiting going on, as then these producers try to find money, try to find the right director and so on. And they were just sort of getting a bit impatient. And that sometimes can be good if you channel that impatience in a constructive way. And she wrote a short film based around one of the issues that one of her feature films is about. And they, found a cameraman who would bring his own camera, found the right actors and so on. And that will be going out to festivals right now. I mean, they've just completed, they did a complete professional post-production and grading and so on. And sort of they are looking around for finding the right festival. I mean, there's another sort of problem with that. That's also where they're helping each other out, that you don't want to sort of just take any festivals, particularly for your premiere. You want to find the right level of festival that gives you exposure. And then, of course, the great thing is when you go to a festival and, in the conversations, people ask you, what brings you here? You can say, yeah, I've got a film in the festival, I've got a show, it runs on Thursday at 2:00 or whatever, have a look at it. It, already is very good for the conversations, which, as we've learned earlier, then make future films happen. People ask you what you want to do next and so on.
Mhm.
So that kind of work then breeds further work.
That's fascinating, Carl. We are nearly end of our station, so I could not ask all the questions that I have from the audience, but this is an open conversation. If you wanted to talk to Carl, feel free to email him, and you can also get his calendar booking from the online screenwritingacademy.com. So if you go over there, you will find lots of tricks and tips, and as well as on our YouTube channels, we're going to be updating all the live that we have done, and we're going to be adding some shorts with quick tips and tricks, and you will love it. So we all want you to support our work, and then from there, if you wanted to work with Carl, feel free to contact him through LinkedIn or any other social media, as we know that there are lots of viewers online at the moment. And please register for our next events. The link is on the descriptions. If you wanted to join our next events for 2nd of July, feel free to join there. And we're going to be talking about idea to production consultancy. So at the end, just for 2 minutes, Carl, can you share us about Cannes Film Festival for the audience, like why you've been there and what success you have brought?
Well, and I think the reason why I'm going there, one of them is that I'm looking after filmmakers who go there for the first time for Screen Island. So they get a group of people together, Screen Island, of filmmakers, writers who go there for the first time to promote their project and so on, or some, and we've done that for a few years. So one of them was there, as you're talking about success story.
Mm-hmm.
He was in that group last year and pitching his project, and he was in the group again this year. He wanted to sort of listen to me twice. With a rough cut of his film.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meanwhile, he'd shot this and was then looking for sales agents and for film festivals again to place this right. And we had sort of conversations. And then, of course, the advantage is in Cannes that we have a conversation, say, oh, you could talk to this way, and that would be good for North America and so on. And then he could just get up and go, and find these people, and talk to them, which, usually in the Zoom call is not that easy. So let's say, the Cannes Film Festival really accelerates all those kind of ideas. Oh, that's an idea. Let's try it out. Let's see if we can meet these people. And that's certainly, something where I find, oh, I've got an Indian co-production and I go to the Indian pavilion and sure, just sit down there, have a cup of tea, and then in the rest of the afternoon, I talked to 5 Indian producers, who are all capable and sort of, why they might be interested in working with me on this and so on. Not all these relationships work, not all these people will follow up and so on, but it's, it's certainly, there's no place otherwise, or,
Mm-hmm.
Other festivals to some degree where you can have that kind of follow through, in such little time, and so let's say there's a sort of, that's sort of the specific thing. And also, I mean, as anybody who's sort of film and television, there's sort of huge changes going on at the moment. Cinema is becoming a lot more global. I mean, when we sort of talked about Hollywood domination, let's say again in certainly the end of the 20th century, in the beginning it was French domination, but that's another matter. at the end of the 20th century, that can't be said anymore. I mean, we all know that there are lots of sound stages in Hollywood that are empty because people now make films all over the world at Hollywood quality level. We've talked here about the influence of AI that takes over certain tasks, and that will also enable new voices to make films who usually wouldn't be entitled. So, I mean, I grew up in the North German woods. I would have never thought I'll be entitled to work in the British film industry, let alone go to the Cannes Film Festival. But that kind of stuff becomes now more accessible. But how that will change the industry, lots of panels in Cannes scratching their heads over it. But if you're part of the head scratching process, at least you get a sense of what your own role can be and how you can deal with it in the year to come. That's the advantage of going to festivals. And by all means, it's Cannes is just the sort of the biggest, beastliest of them all. Where, let's say, that kind of power is very condensed. But I really recommend anybody here who can go to a film festival, maybe run by a little cultural center or something smaller near them. Certainly everybody who goes to festivals, let's say smaller national film festivals like in Mumbai or Edinburgh or sort of places like that, they're much easier to work, because in Cannes, if you meet a person, you probably don't meet them again in the rest of the week because it's just so sprawling. Whereas in smaller film festivals, you run into people again and you have another drink. You can really sort of form a stronger bond and so on. So, I'm all for that. People going, maybe volunteering, you really know film festival inside out, get a lot of insights and so on if you volunteer as a driver or as an usher or so on at a film festival. Do all that kind of stuff in order to understand how connections are made.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. We are nearly end of our sessions, and we will welcome you to our next session with Carl. And as always, it's my pleasure to talk to you, Carl, and bring individual topics to the audience. And please share, like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channels. The link is there. We're going to be updating tons of things over there in next couple of weeks. So anything, if you wanted to talk to Carl directly, feel free to contact him directly. And as well as we need your support to go to the next levels, because your support will give us the opportunity for creating next breakout. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Carl. And bye-bye from me and Carl. And I will welcome you next 2nd of July with Idea to Production Consultancy. Thank you and bye-bye.